it was like okay with it.
Yeah, it must have been. I mean,
impressive. That's an impressive goddamn mosquito.
It's scary. They're just
I thought
becoming
this would be
resistant.
I was hoping this shot would be more like beautiful, like nature park. It's more like kind of like ghetto, like concrete steps. just the way it's set up. And my $1 million production quality version, I'm going to bring.
I mean,
inflatable chairs.
That, but I think that would be.
No, I want to stand. What are you going to stand up? We're not going to. That's no.
This is. Sit on the edge
at least we're sitting
like
here.
I don't know how stable that is.
Jeez, that just took me 5 minutes. It would take another 5 minutes, and we'll fall over the edge.
Are we on now?
We're on. We've started. Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is one of the things that between the last video interview and this one that I fucked up with my friend on Hong Kong that I've learned is just to like have like more normal conversation.
Yeah, don't
force it.
Scripting.
No, I mean I got a bunch of shit scripted. We're gonna script it, but we're anyway moving towards that direction slowly.
Yeah, well,
if we'd already recorded the 2 hours of conversation we'd had, that would have been perfect. But we didn't. All right. I also have like all of these.
This time again.
All of these like very interviewee. Fair enough. Very interviewee questions. The first one is the worst, I promise. The first one is by far the worst. It gets better after this. Okay. Are you ready? Don't cringe. You're from the U.S.
Uh-huh.
Where are you from?
I'm from...
We haven't gotten there yet. That's the first part to the interview question.
Okay.
Where are you from in the U.S.?
I'm from the U.S. I'm from a little one-horse town called New Bern in North Carolina.
New Bern. Can you say that in a North Carolina accent?
I don't have
New Bern, North Carolina. Is that how people say it?
No. I mean, if my twin or my middle brother were here, probably they would...
Twangy? A little bit twangy.
I don't know if it's a twang or if it's a drawl.
Have you ever heard that Fred Armisen bit? It's like one of his famous bits where he says like, I can do any accent in the world.
I actually don't know who that guy is.
Oh, Fred Armisen. He's like a famous like American. He was on SNL. I think he like got very famous on SNL. I don't know. A lot of SNL people go on to do other acting. I don't know what else he's done, but a huge cast member on SNL. Back when SNL used to be funny. But he has this bit where he says, I can do any accent in the world, like name any. And they'll say, okay, do like a German accent. They'll say, what part, north, south? They'll say like southern. Yes, but what district? Like what borough, like, and then he'll just like make up some like, he's a good actor. He's a voice actor.
Uh-huh.
And he'll say, like, well, Auburn, North Carolina is very open. It's a very open kind of southern accent. Whereas if you go to Tallahassee, it's much more closed, much more. They round off the vowels much closer. Like it's all bullshit, but it's like very funny. Like when he's like can actually act. So, but you're not gonna do a draw for me. Okay, here's the second half of the cringy question. What was your life like growing up?
Oh God.
Yeah, that's a big question.
That goes.
Gotta change this next time
because there's different levels of the onion that have to be peeled.
All right, so let me frame the interview. We're talking about United States. You've lived in other places. What's the difference between United States and living in other places? That's the frame for the interview.
Okay.
So, in that context, how's your childhood? A lot of nature, a lot of sports, a lot of drugs. What were you up to?
Very imaginative. Running around the neighborhood a lot as a kid. Sticks, beating things.
Sounds violent.
Sounds like well, it is my childhood. Up until like a certain age. I think at 10 or 11, I stopped being a child because that's when I moved to Florida.
So that's like a big turning point in your life is...
10 or 11, yeah.
To move to Florida.
My dad remarried at 9, when I was 9.
Not when he was 9.
Not when he was 9.
Not when she was 9, hopefully.
Yeah. No,
okay.
She was not 9.
Okay.
My stepmom is from the UK. She's from an area north of London, but I've never been to her neck of the woods. That's something a North Carolinian would say.
Neck of the woods. 3 historical events in your lifetime. 1990. Oh my gosh, this is the one I was using for my British friend. Okay, no, I got it. Okay, 2001. What happened? I'm starting off easy.
Oh. Yeah. The
America.
World Trade Center attack.
2008,
Election of Barack Obama.
2015.
What happened in this
I mean, a bunch of stuff happens every year. It's kind of... gay marriage was made legal throughout the United States just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
All right, of those 3 events, which one is the bigger event in your memory? Which one is a little bit more than the other ones?
I wouldn't say I understood the impacts of 9/11. I've talked about this with one of my... I mean, obviously, I remember it being bussed back home from school.
Okay, you're like in the middle of the day?
Yeah, in the middle of the day. And my dad was in the kitchen watching on the small TV we had in horror at what was unfolding in both D.C. and in New York. I have a friend named Katie here who is about 4 or so years older. She was in middle school by the time that I was in 4th grade when that happened. So her experience, because we talked about this before, is quite different. Like, she remembers it more vividly.
Whereas you were, what, in elementary school?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, of course I remember just being bussed back home. I guess my fear level was just not really there.
Sure.
To me, it's...
Because you're a kid. You're a kid.
Well, also, I'm not neurotypical either, and that's also another thing. I don't even know if I told you about that, but
I mean, but it's really. I mean, it's not like it was. You know, I mean, what would you see as a kid if you were in North Carolina? It's like adults freaking out. Like that's what you see, adults freaking out, right?
Well,
I mean, like what other?
Out,
yeah.
I have no idea what's going on. It's just my dad is sort of the one who's, I guess we could say, in control. Like he knows what to do.
Right.
Ish.
Yeah. But it's it's not like there's buildings falling around you. It's not like there's fire. It's not like there's something like very tangible in front of your little kid face to be afraid. You know, like a dog could never freak out about 9/11.
Special effects on a TV series going on, and you really have no idea if this is like you don't have. Yeah,
your only real social input is like adults who you look up to, like the safe people, and like their reaction. Like, are they freaking out?
Or I guess that we could say that like everyone had their eyes glued to the TV and they're just mesmerized by this horrific thing that's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
No one really knows how to process it. You just see visions of people hoofing it across the Brooklyn Bridge to get the fuck out of New York.
Yeah.
And like go out to the different boroughs, or you see like the flames coming from the Pentagon. You know, it's kind of funny. My mom told me later on that my grandfather's office, he used to be a career Army officer. He had an office in the Pentagon, and it was on that side that was actually hit.
Oh my God.
But that was like decades before.
Sure.
But even so, it's just...
It's very...
People's memories about growing up. Like my mom and my grandma and her sister, or my mom's sister, used to go pick up my grandfather from work. And then they would drive back to Fairfax, Virginia. Yeah.
Intense. I feel like, I think it was maybe the day after for me. My grandpa was in the hospital having like a heart surgery, and he told me there, like, you know, his grandkids like huddled around for like wise words. Well, actually, he had a surgery, right? So that's why we're there, not because of the news. But he said, just in passing that like, in his lifetime, the assassination of JFK was the thing that, like, everyone remembers where you were, blah, blah, blah. And he said, like, this was, I think, September 12th, maybe 13th, I think 12th, that he said, like, this is going to be it for you. Like you're going to remember for your whole life, like, this event and, like, where you were. Like, he just told his grandkids, like, this is huge, like. And I think, if I bring up anything like Barack Obama or gay marriage, I feel like for anyone, it's going to be September 11th. Unless you were born after, maybe if you're, if you're 18 or something. Yeah. If you didn't quite live through it, you're a little bit too young.
Well, I mean, even I have a niece. My oldest brother and I have a 13-year-old difference, and my oldest niece is 7 years younger than me.
Okay.
She does not have a recollection. Well, she probably does have a recollection, but it's far less than I do.
I see.
Like, she was 4 years old when that happened.
Young.
So she wouldn't...
Yeah.
It would not register for her, but she was alive by the time that happened. Or she's still alive. But
Good.
I hope. I mean, I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a while. But Actually, I would say like probably the event that had more of an impact for me, or will have more of an impact on me, is the Obergefell versus Ohio.
Wow, what's this?
Or that's the case ruling. Also, Windsor versus New York or something that ushered in the legalization of same-sex marriage. Like for me, that'll be a bigger event in my life because that allows me to actually get married to someone.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting question, right? Like about the events you remember. Like September 11th was kind of like a discrete incident, whereas there's other things like court rulings that like drastically change history, but more slowly and over time.
Well, I mean, I could even say because recently, a week ago to the day, Taiwan's legislature finally approved, or they
made it like legal, right?
So their Supreme Court had a ruling called number 748, which pretty much said you either have to amend the Constitution or the Civil Code to reflect the legalization of same-sex marriage, or create a special law to deal with it. Or you can just let it lapse for 2 years and then it'll automatically become part of the law because we have ruled so.
So the court said the legislature has to deal with it.
So I remember now this feeling that I had in 2015. I remember it was, I think I had just graduated already from university, and I had like woken up at like 8 a.m. on the morning of June 26th, I think. June 25th. Whatever day it was in June that they that the Supreme Court in the United States had ruled to strike down all the marriage bans. So I was elated that day, but I can't remember that. Except this last Friday, I also felt such a sense of relief that in Taiwan, I could get married if I wanted to. If I had a Taiwanese boyfriend.
Is it more about being able to get married or being equal?
It is the equality factor to me. I've always seen it this way.
I don't know that many gay people here who actually are like signing up to get married.
I don't think a lot of people are.
Yeah, that's true. Not gay people, just any people. People who get married here. Isn't Taiwan is like one of the worst countries in the world for like having kids, right? Like lowest fertility rates.
I think a lot of places in East Asia are like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So not just Taiwan, but there's also Japan, Korea, China. They all have low birth rates, and they all have aging populations.
We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. Last U.S. question. Good and bad things about living in the U.S. compared to other places you've lived. What do you miss, and what will you never miss about the U.S.?
It's such a tough question to answer because the U.S. is really...
These are all really deep, right? And like, I know.
Well, you have 50 different states with 50 different experiences.
For you. We're just talking about you. Just for you. Only for you.
For me...
I know, the U.S. is huge. Huge and very multicultural. For you.
I guess I probably had a shift in the way that I view.
I feel like this interview needs to be like 17 hours, not 30 minutes. For really each of these questions, each of these questions is an hour.
So,
gut reaction.
About whether I like it back in
No. Not whether you like it or not.
Just a good thing about it.
Just good things for you that like you don't have here, and things that we have here that we don't have there. That you know.
I miss being able to drive.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I definitely miss. Although I don't miss car payments, I don't miss insurance.
All the stuff around that, especially all the financial things.
But I miss being able to, like, I like the feeling of just going down a highway at like 80 miles per hour. And being able to flip back and forth like over a couple hundred miles for a day. When I was in university, my sophomore year, I used to travel 100 miles a day, 50 miles each way.
Oh my God, that's too long of a commute.
Well, it wasn't. Well, it was only on a Sunday.
Okay.
I would go to a Zen center in Chapel Hill from my university in Greensboro. And I would think on that sometimes, like I'm going, and one of my mentors, I think I've mentioned her to you before.
Yeah.
She looked over at me as I was driving us in the morning to this Zazen session at like 9 a.m. We had to get up at 8, drive an hour there. She said to me, you know, we're driving 50 miles, just sit in front of a fucking wall. And
for meditation, right?
Yeah, just
you
for
are literally
meditation.
just sitting in front of a wall.
But it's nice to have the community, and so that's the only reason we did it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah, that's another thing we could talk about for 3 hours straight. Definitely. Definitely.
For sure.
All right. U.S., specifically
Driving.
North Carolina, but U.S. also trivia.
Yeah.
North Carolina has a little bit of a rivalry with Ohio over a 1903 invention that changed the world that both states claim. Airplane, very nice.
Yeah.
Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Famous people from North Carolina? You win if you get one.
Virginia Dare.
Nice. Who's she?
She is the first child to be born from European immigrants in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah.
In the United States,
During
like
the colonial-
1776?
No, pre.
Oh,
Was it late 1500s or 1600s?
she's on the record for being like the first
She
baby.
is the first white baby born in.
I mean, there
what is
was
now the
European
United
settlers,
States.
what, like 15th century? Like 14 some odds?
Yeah, so she, unfortunately, I mean, there's a record of her having been born.
Oh,
but
yeah.
no one had survived from that settlement. Although there's quite a few theories about what happened.
Is this
to them.
the disappeared?
Yeah,
settlement?
the Roanoke colony. It's called the Lost Colony.
It's too hard,
There's
man.
a great,
If it takes
great
you
podcast on
months,
that.
if it takes you months to get over it, it's too hard. Thank God.
There's a podcast on stuff you should know about this entire subject.
It's called Stuff You Should Know.
Stuff you should know, and they have an episode on the Lost Colony.
I know I've heard
Roanoke
that story in a couple places. It's a famous story. I'm not sure. I think probably once in history class and then once in some YouTube video podcast or something like this. What I have down: Andrew Johnson and Jackson, John Coltrane,
Oh yeah.
Thelonious Monk, Clay Aiken.
Well, Andrew Jackson, some people say he was born in Tennessee because he was born in Appalachia. And so,
So once again, one of those things both states want to claim.
yeah, I mean, he was born in a log cabin.
This is all from Wikipedia. It's all from Wikipedia. Get them if this is wrong. North Carolina state sport,
Basketball.
NASCAR. You ever been?
I remember we went by it.
Oh,
because
cool.
There's Six Flags in Charlotte.
Have you ever been to a car race at all?
No, I don't think so.
You are not Southern, sir.
No.
Highest point on to the U.S. Highest point in the U.S.
Mount Mitchell? No.
In Alaska. Denali, McKinley. If you asked me this question 2 hours ago, I wouldn't have been able to give you the answer. I just have a phone. All right, quick round. U.S. city nicknames. I'll tell you the nickname. You tell me the city. Windy City.
Chicago.
Motor City.
Detroit.
Nice. We're going easy here. Let's get into some hard ones. Space City.
Oh, is that like Apollo Beach, Florida, or
Houston. Wikipedia. America's finest city. This I think is the worst. It's not even a good city. It's not even like a nice one.
Portland?
San Diego.
No.
San Diego. It's America's finest city. The Big Easy.
That's New Orleans.
Nice. Beantown.
Beantown. Oh. Fuck, I used
Beantown to
know.
the European Union. Boston.
Boston. Oh.
There's 2 states in the United States who have never recorded temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, although both of them have recorded high temperatures of exactly 100 Fahrenheit. What are the 2 states? One's obvious.
Juneau?
Alaska, yes. Alaska. And the other...
Anchorage? No, wait.
No. 2 states. Not 2 cities.
Oh,
2 states.
Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska.
I'm gonna go with Maine.
Good guess. Hawaii.
No way.
Yes. It makes things more temperate. Soaks up the energy.
No, I don't believe that for a second. That... Okay, so like the Big
Wikipedia.
Island
We
is
can pull up the Wikipedia
southernmost
page.
part
We
of the
can
United
pull
States.
up the Wikipedia page. But the thing about islands is they're temperate, right? Like they don't get too hot, they don't get too cold, because the water acts as like a temperature buffer.
I cannot believe that in terms of.
I
where
would,
it is.
Tim. I would highly recommend to not trust any of the things I'm saying right now. Take
don't.
all of it. Take all of it with a
don't.
very large grain of salt. All right, on to more
Take it in the
questions.
bag.
I'm looking at the time, by the way. What other countries have you lived in outside of the U.S.?
I lived in China. Again, here in Taiwan.
Taiwan, good.
Yeah.
And Japan, a couple places. Spent some time anyway.
Well, I mean, I would say I've visited these places
Extensively.
I would not say,
Okay.
Yeah.
Feel ya. Just for the record, is Taiwan a different country than China? Yes or no? Fuck yeah. For the record, it's down.
Taiwan number one.
What were your first impressions of China when you first got there?
Is this maple syrup? I'm talking about the air.
Oh, we just before we started this interview, we talked for like 30 minutes about the air, about Taiwan
like
versus
maple syrup.
China, the air.
It smelled like maple syrup as soon as I got off the plane.
My first memory of China at all was going out of the airport for 5 minutes in Beijing, looking at the sun and thinking, that's not what the sun should look like a science fiction movie. Like everything, these things you'd take for granted. You mentioned it didn't rain there for a long time. I also mentioned bugs. It's like you don't think you'd ever miss bugs until, like, it's good to not have bugs in your house. But if you never find a bug in your house, that's kind of weird. That's really kind of strange.
I mean, I will say I never saw a cockroach in Beijing.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it was extremely...
Thank God for the maple syrup air. Too bad the cockroaches can't live there. What's your impression of China now? Not first impressions, but after living there for a little bit and then having some time to mull.
Like immediately after I came back, or right now?
Yeah, now. Yeah.
So it's been about 5 years since I've lived in China, but I pay a lot of attention to the news. I'm also a translator, and so I see a lot of documents for a lot of politics and other commentary that I frequently have to translate. And one of the biggest trends that I've seen, and I wouldn't say it wasn't something that didn't exist then. Of course, it's existed in China for a long time, even under imperial rule, and that is authoritarianism. The heavy-handedness has actually gotten worse. The belligerence, I think, is another thing too. Like bullying their neighbors, like the Philippines.
You're talking about as a country, not
as a country.
Okay.
So, do you want to go into that a little bit more, or did you want to focus on a different aspect of that, or?
You said,
barring the time.
Yeah, you said, I was mentioning, thinking about moving back to China, you said I shouldn't. Just thinking about quality of life. Why would you say that? Let's say there's the air. Is there other things, or is it mostly like pollution, how things are kind of poisonous for your body? Is that most of it, or are there other things as well? Why you wouldn't want to move back, let's say, from Taiwan to China?
I would just think that even if you earn the money to make up for things, why
for the lost quality of life?
Yeah, why would you need to be spending money to gain back that quality of life? Like, why would you want to have to hire out a water service to bring you water?
Get an air purifier in your house, wear face masks.
For me, here in Taiwan, it is so humid that I have to have a dehumidifier in my place, or else everything would mold. But that's a normal expense. I just happen to have the benefit of having an air purifier built into that as well.
Oh,
plus
nice.
Into the air conditioning units in my house already.
Oh, that's super nice.
But those are normal conveniences. Those are things you could expect. For China, you have to have HEPA filters. You have to have those things that can actually give you, that can try to balance out how many toxins.
If you want to reduce the extreme amount of pressure your body is put under by how toxic everything is, food and water, air.
I had a friend from Oklahoma in my program when I was studying in China who had a carpenter's mask. He literally had a mask that had 2 filters, heavy-duty filters on the side, and I thought,
like a respirator.
Outlandish. Yeah, a real respirator, like one for someone who actually works in construction. I just had the flimsy carbon filter stuff that M3,
which is still way more than most people wear, like a cloth mask or something.
But people would think, you're just you have a cold. And I'm like, no, I don't have a cold. You're
protecting yourself.
Trying to minimize as much damage as I'm getting, and I don't even think I'm actually protecting myself that much by wearing this.
Reducing it a bit, perhaps.
If I can, why not?
That's an interesting thing about the mask culture in Asia, right? In Japan and here, people wear masks out for a lot of reasons, but one of the big reasons is if you're sick, you wear one so you don't get other people sick. It's one of the big reasons.
I actually do it for the opposite. So I'll wear a mask so other people don't get
sick. Don't cough on you. Yeah.
And then also when I'm chewing gum on the train because you're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to. Oh, Taiwan, what a beautiful place.
I can't tell. Yeah.
Should we skip Japan? Let's skip Japan. Let's focus on China for now. We can get Japan later. Any favorite city in China?
It's kind of hard to say because I never actually traveled extensively.
I see.
When I was in China, I was in a 20-hour Chinese program in Beijing, and I didn't have a lot of time to actually get out. The only cities that I actually visited were Dalian and forget what it was. It wasn't even a big city. It was more like a small city. And I say that with a caveat that it's like probably a million people living in that place.
Yeah.
But it was the mountain resort for the Qing emperors in northern Hebei province. Believe it or not, even though it was about 100 miles away on a map, it took 5 hours by train to get there. We had to go through mountains, and we stopped at every little pass station that we ran by.
Yeah, it's something. It's amazing to think about the size of Chinese cities. I mean, obviously, it's the biggest country in the world. We all know that. Although India's right on its heels, but like, so Taipei is a big city, same size as Chicago population, about 2.5 million people. If it were in China, it would be something like number 50, biggest city in China. One question I'll ask you about both China and Japan is, for American people, what kind of people do you think would like living in China, would like to move to China to live, or Japan? What kind of people do you think would enjoy life there?
So I think for China, I mean, I even see this with people that I know who not only did that program with me in Beijing, but they were actually pursuing degrees there. I would say, just from looking at their Facebook profiles and the types of things that they write about, it would probably be people who are nitty-gritty seekers who don't mind the abrasiveness and the brashness and the, I guess,
not delicate people.
No, I would say like a New Yorker would probably fit in decently. Like the rough and tumble, like let's fucking get up and start fighting right now kind of mentality. Like that's my assumption of New Yorkers.
Yeah. Yeah, East Coasters are definitely more rough than middle of the country, Midwest. I don't know, not Southern. There's one guy, the guy I went over to China with first. Granted, he was a really big guy, like I don't know, 400 pounds or something. He was like American big guy. But he was Southern, like extremely conservative, very xenophobic about food. And I remember they gave us like a free Chinese class, and I was sitting there with him. It was just the two of us, and he kept asking like why do you guys say things wrong? Like he could, like the grammar is like a bit different. It's not even that different. It's like a bit different from English, and he's like, why don't you say it this way? Like I think he just left in the middle of the night after like 3 days. It was a short stint for the poor man. But
I would also say you have to set a really low bar for China. I could say that about 2014. I think it's probably gotten a little bit more softer in terms of
I can attest for that. Like I was there just last summer. I went to like 4 different cities, and there's cities I've never been to, granted, but the last time I was there was 3 years before that, or 2 years before that, and I even felt like a palpable change in like a couple of years coming back to the country as a whole, because it is a country. Like it is like, even though it's a huge country, biggest population in the world, it's very much like a monoculture in a lot of ways. Like you can hear there's a lot of ethnic groups, a lot of languages, and there are some different variations, but it's very much a country, So like, for example, looking at their technology, how their technology develops, it's something you can notice very clearly, like in any city over time. One thing I need to ask you about in interview number 1, you're very interested in languages.
Yeah.
What languages do you know or have studied?
So I have studied Mandarin Chinese for, has it been 10 years? It's been at least 9 years since I started. I actually started teaching myself in high school from some books that I got from the library. And took an online course when I was still in high school, my senior year. Got to college, took it for about 4 years in actual classes, or 3 years. And then spent 2 semesters in Beijing. I also studied Russian for 4 years in university.
Oh, didn't know that one.
No, I thought I told you about that.
Probably.
Yeah. So right now, I started learning Taiwanese in August, and it's wow, it's been like 10 months since I started learning.
So Taiwanese is pretty much like a local language for this island, more or less, yes?
Yeah, before Mandarin was imposed under martial law as the medium for education and everything else, governance-wise, Taiwanese was pretty much the lingua franca for Taiwan.
Okay, so it's not like a little tribal religion. It was like, or a language.
No.
It's like the language before Mandarin kind of took over.
Yeah, well, I would not say take over, it was forced upon them, but yeah. I think most people in Taiwan can at least understand it. Younger generations don't speak it as much.
It's a little bit of a dying language, right? Well, given how older generations use it
where
normally.
You are.
Okay.
It depends where you are. Like, for example, I have friends who live in Tainan. They have one family that I know. They have 2 daughters, and even though both parents speak Taiwanese at home, they also speak some Mandarin, of course.
Sure.
Both parents have a college education as well, so it's not a rural thing either. Like, educated people can also know a great deal of Taiwanese as well. They speak in both languages at home, but one of their daughters does not, she can understand Taiwanese, but she doesn't speak it. They don't force their kids to speak either language.
Just kind of naturally.
One daughter speaks it really well, and she also speaks Mandarin, of course.
Sure.
But the younger one doesn't speak Taiwanese as much. And I will try to speak to her in Taiwanese. But she...
To kind of nudge her along, you mean?
To nudge her along, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it's very important that Taiwanese people maintain this language, as well as Hakka and indigenous languages as well. It's extremely important, and I don't think it should be...
For their cultural identity.
For cultural identity and...
Preserving the...
Well, Taiwan is a very diverse country. A lot of people might not think of it that way, but there are 16 Aboriginal tribes that are recognized. There are also more tribes that are not recognized because either they don't have the cultural significance left over after signification over 200 plus years of contact with Han settlers, especially in western Taiwan, along the coastal plain. When you go into the mountains, it's much more obvious that you're in a different world. Literally a different world. So I think it's important for this cultural heritage to not only be maintained, but to be used, and I think that there needs to be more of an effort in Taiwan by their education system to use these languages